All right, hello everyone, and good morning. My name is Kob Nguyen, and I am your host for the very new video podcast series called Comfort Food, where we discuss the immigrant American experience across different demographics and generations. So, this is the very first episode, and I have my phone. I probably need a little practice for a while being a host. This is going to be my first time doing it. But the guest for today's podcast is actually going to be me. Since it is the first episode, I'd like to do kind of an introductory episode where I lay out the format using myself as the guest. So I'll just be posing the questions to myself and just answering them so that you can get to know a little bit about me, your host. Then, as we bring other guests onto the show, you'll have kind of an understanding on this layout, this initial layout that we'll use on the show to kind of uncover and share with each other about the immigrant American experience, depending on your demographic as well as the generation that you're in for it. So, introducing myself. My name is Kob Nguyen. I am currently 25 years old, and my current occupation is a freelance professional videographer. I actually just recently made the career switch to this role. The purpose of today's episode is just to share a little bit about myself and my background so that you know about me as a host and can get an example of future show formats. So, today, in this comfort food episode, we're going to be making Vietnamese style spring rolls. So, in every comfort food episode, what's going to happen is the guest that is coming on, I'll be asking them what their comfort food is. I think comfort foods are this really amazing thing that we have in each of our backgrounds. As a child, you're growing up and you're eating it, and you take it, potentially for granted. Or it could be your favorite food, but you definitely take it for granted when it's made for you. And now, as an adult, making it yourself or having it made for you once again, it really brings back that nostalgia and that comfort from when times were simpler as a child. That's why I think it's a great representation of someone's upbringing as well as their heritage, what their comfort food is. For me, that was spring rolls. My mom would always make these spring rolls for me, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So let's go on ahead and get into the car, pick up some groceries. Let's do it. Alrighty, not super sure how to do this yet. I don't know how to make the very expensive and nice camera not break. As long as I don't break super hard, I think this is okay. We'll find a solution to secure it in another episode. Driving with a mic. Let's give it a shot. This totally blocks my, the camera is totally blocking my rear view camera view. So I need to go back to the original method of using my side mirrors. Just gonna connect my phone really quick. Get some music going. In this car ride, we are going to be talking about my background. So, as future guests comes on, we're gonna go grocery shopping together. And during the ride to the grocery store, we'll explore a little bit about the guest's background. So, in terms of the background, we'll cover family, education, career, hobbies and interests, and social circles at a high level. So nothing super in depth, just highlights across any of those 5 categories. So let's go ahead and get started. So, in terms of my family, my family came to America. My mom and dad, they came separately, so they met here in the U.S., but they're both from Vietnam, so I'm Vietnamese, and my dad came here on a boat through, I think he was in a refugee camp and then got sponsored by a very nice family up in Pennsylvania. Then my mom, my grandfather, so her dad, he was actually an officer for in the South for the war. So him and my great uncle were both able to sponsor their children, so my mom and her siblings and her cousins, over to the U.S. eventually, or a lot of them at least. So my parents came here. I think my dad came here a couple years, or maybe like right after the war. I can't remember exactly the dates, but they were here. My father was here like in his late teens, early 20s. That's when he got here. And then my mom, she came here in her early 20s. And then they both went back to school. My dad became a programmer. He majored in math, but computer science, minored in computer science. And back then, computer science was like very different to get a minor in. So he picked that up and ended up becoming a software engineer as his main career. And then my mom, she was a teacher in Vietnam. She came here, and when she came to the U.S., she went back to school, went to a pharmacy school, and she was a pharmacist for a long time. And now she is retired. So I'm very happy for her. So, and I have a little sister. She's 2 years younger than me. Her name is Megan. I love her very much. Megan, if you listen to this, just know that I appreciate you. I know I bullied you a lot as a kid, but that's just what older brothers do. It was all out of good fun, but ultimately, we do support each other after all the jokes and the teasing and the such. So, mom, dad, sister covered. My family is a pretty big family. Over on my mom's side, I have, I think, a total of like 5 or 6 aunts and uncles and a bunch of cousins. So, with regarding my mom's side of the family, they were very. It was very fun to grow up around my cousins. They all were either in like the Maryland or Virginia area, and I'm from the Northern Virginia area, so it was always like a lot of activity growing up, and being close to my cousins. On my dad's side of the family, I he does have a few sisters and brothers, but I only really talk to like one of my aunts, and she has 2 kids. They're both like significantly older than me, so they have children right now, and I call their children my nieces and nephews. So it's very fun getting to hang out with them. But growing up, my 2 cousins who were like much older than me, they were always a big highlight whenever they came over to my house and played with me as a kid. I thought it was always like the coolest thing. I love them both very much. So that's my family. In terms of education, I was born and raised in Northern Virginia primarily. So I was in Centerville for a while. I went to elementary school for a little bit in a Catholic school up until the 2nd grade. Then I moved to Loudoun County, where I went to the public schooling system, and Loudoun County has a pretty good public schooling system, so I rode that out from the rest of K through 12 pretty much. So 2nd grade up until I graduated high school. And then I went to Virginia Tech, go Hokies. That is a school in Virginia that's pretty renowned for their football and other sports. And they have also a really good engineering program. But yeah, and I graduated from there. So that brings me, that's a little bit about my education. I got a business information technology degree from Virginia Tech, and I only have a bachelor's, so I'm glad I made it out of college alive. And then, yeah, and that brings me straight into my career. So I'd say my career started when I got involved with like my club community in Virginia Tech, which is the Vietnamese Student Association. So I'm sure a lot of you know about that, but I think that really got me working with people and teams. That's like my first time like beginning to collaborate in that way, and I took those skills into, you know, other jobs and career opportunities. So after graduating from college, I did freelance writing for a little bit. I was also involved in the umbrella organization for VSA called MOFSA, which is the umbrella organizations for all the VSAs in the mid-Atlantic region. And I was doing sponsorship for them for a while. And then after my freelance gig, and this was during COVID. So I graduated during COVID. I was doing freelance writing for a while, and then I eventually applied and found a job at Geico, the insurance company, in their IT program. So it's an IT leadership program. It was a rotational career development program. Every 6 months you rotate, and then you get to be a manager at the end of it. So I joined that program. I did 2 rotations in my first year, and it's a 3-year program. After those 2 rotations, I decided I didn't want to be a manager in IT, so I applied to another role within the company, and I went into program management at Geico. So I actually went to help administrate one of the early career programs we have at Geico called the TDP program, the Technology Development Program. And the rotational program and that opportunity were really great opportunities that helped me build a lot of my confidence in corporate. And then other career things I did, I also had a quick internship at Capital One, which I did not like. Capital One was definitely not my favorite opportunity. It's a very different environment over there. So after Capital One so freelance writing, Capital One to Geico, and then and I just recently left Geico. I'm now doing freelance videography. I'm getting into still in the media niche, but for video, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm gonna produce a lot of content, just like this one right here, and hopefully get better at everything over time. I mean, I know I will. So, I hope everyone else has faith, and for the supporters that do and are with me from day one, especially those watching this episode, I really appreciate you all. But anyways, so that was my career. Yeah, I gotta really figure out this format. So after career, we have hobbies and interests. So content creation, videos and stuff. Volleyball is a big one for me right now. Music production is kind of on the back burner, but I've been getting into that. And then I had a lot of much older hobbies. The ones I just mentioned are active ones, but I used to write fiction a little bit. What else did I used to do? I used to do magic tricks. I used to game a lot. I was a big gamer. I still casually game now, but I used to game more intensely, especially on League of Legends for my fellow Rift folks. And in terms of the social circles I'm running in now, I have a very core group of friends that are near and dear to my heart. The ones that are probably gonna that had the highest chance of watching this first episode. So I can't mention how much I appreciate them. And then I also have my fiance who I live with, and she is my rock and she's my support system through this entire experience. So, a very tight core group of friends, and I also have a very great community of people around me. Even though they're not my innermost circle, I still see these folks weekly for just going out or playing volleyball together. And it's always fun to know new people deeply. It's something that I enjoy a lot. So that's a little bit about my background. Highlights are mega blown out. Car ride is crazy. Now you can see me. Oh, too bad we parked and we're going to go into the grocery store, so I'm going to have to adjust the lighting again. So I realized I didn't hit the record button going into the grocery store, and that means I didn't get to describe what the grocery store format is. It's pretty simple though. For each grocery ingredient type that I'm getting, I'm going to ask a question and answer it. So for the first question, it was for the produce. So we're just getting iceberg lettuce here, and you'll see that on the screen. But the question is, what was your upbringing like, and how did your parents raise you? And you'll see the answer in the next clip. Great. So I'm by the oranges. It looks more discreet. It's a open pathway. Recording and interviewing myself is pretty tough. Anywho, what was my upbringing like? So my upbringing was pretty cushy. I grew up in the upper middle class. I was very blessed to be in a background like that. Looking back at it, definitely as a kid, there are times that I feel like any kid's this is the worst thing that could ever be, but I've come to realize that my upbringing was actually pretty nice, and I've come to appreciate that. a lot more over the years. So yeah, upper middle class. And how did my parents raise me? So I'd say my parents raised me pretty well. And I think this is pretty true for most Asian American families and immigrant families in general, but there's a big emphasis on education. But aside from that, I think, my parents taught me to like be polite, be really kind to people. My dad's like both my dad and mom are really like kind people. And so I think they really instilled that type of value in me. And then they also taught me to like emphasize family. And yeah, I think there's more to that. This is my first episode and I have no idea what I'm doing. So we'll leave it at that. They raised me really well. I had a really good upbringing. And they just wanted to make sure I focused on school to go down a very traditional, stable route, which is quite frankly not exactly what's happening right now in terms of me being on a more quote-unquote traditional and traditionally stable route. But yeah, we'll move on to the proteins. The proteins we're going to grab here are shrimp and beef for the spring rolls. And the question is going to be, what did you feel was expected of you growing up? So let's get walking here. All right, so for the beef, I think I'll just go for like this stir-fried beef. I think that will fit into the spring rolls just fine. So really I feel like the only actual expectations I had as growing up were one, to make sure I was, protecting my sister, make sure that, she's not getting bullied in school. We're 2 years apart. And honestly, I didn't really need to do that. I did, bring her along to things. She hung out with my guy friends from time to time. She played video games with me, and that was really cool. But in terms of like school stuff, I think she, handled herself pretty well. She's an independent woman, so I didn't need to do any heavy lifting on that. The other thing was really just to focus on like grades and just like the traditional kind of education route. So, as long as I was getting A's, I was going to be okay. At high school, though, I didn't do, super hot in school. So I definitely felt the weight of expectations on me in terms of kind of that like educational expectation, which I think my family, felt was really the pillar to my future and me standing on my own feet. So those are the two things I, felt like were most expected on me. Just like focus on education, get a scholarship, stuff like that, and then, take care of my sister and just be good to my parents. They're very simple growing up type of expectations. I'm gonna grab the shrimp here, and then we will get the base, which is the noodles and the rice paper, right after this. Let's go. Okay, so they had head-on shrimp, which works, except since I'm filming alone, I don't want to get my hand in a bag and come at it, but I might have to. I'm gonna look for like a frozen shrimp bag though. So here, this is my option one. We got some head-on shrimp. Never really. This one's harder to cook. I'm probably gonna grab this one if I have to, but let's see if I can find some frozen shrimp here in one of the other sections. Nope. Mussels. Huh. Frozen shrimp. Oh, this might be it. Pollock? No, this is fish. Okay, I'm totally gonna have to get my hand in a bag. Let's just do that really quick. So we're gonna go ahead and get our base, so the carbs. And the question for the base is, what were some of your favorite parts about your childhood? So let's go, and I'll walk and talk for this one. Let's see if I can place the camera down. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Maybe I can just lean it on the car. Ooh, is this sus? It might be sus. Alright, let's walk and talk. So, some of my favorite parts about my childhood, I think a highlight is gaming, for sure. Gaming was definitely like a really common trend in my childhood. I always had, I think my first like system might have been the Game Boy, and then I had a Nintendo 64, then I had a Nintendo DS, and yeah, and then eventually I got like a PS3, I got a laptop, and I don't know, I think every phase of my life I was, always hooked on some sort of gaming system because it was just so cool. I feel like gaming back in the day was like this very magical thing. Like technology was kind of just exploding. It's been explosive over the last 20 years or so. And like looking back, when I was a child, like the Game Boy was innovative, just like pixels on a screen. And now like look where we are. So yeah, gaming was definitely a big highlight. Nintendo or the Game Boy, playing Pokemon, and then on the Nintendo DS, Nintendogs and PictoChat and Mario Kart on the bus rides was really cool. PS3, definitely running lots of COD, hit Diablo 3 on the PS3 and then played on the PC. On the computer, League of Legends was a huge one, Minecraft, just all the standard games. Gaming was definitely like a big time sink. I have no regrets at all. It was definitely worth it because I don't play games like that anymore, and honestly, whenever there's a day that I can just play video games all day without, feeling like I am skirting some sort of responsibility, it feels really good. I've come to understand like why it is like a really nice leisurely activity. So gaming is a big highlight of my childhood. Playing like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon with like childhood friends was another big one. And I was just always around friends, like various friends. Throughout my life up until high school, I found my friend group, which was a group of Asian dudes. We're just the silly Asian dudes in the school. So we kind of banded together, and it was really great. So hanging out with them, and a lot of us got into tennis together, playing, and we played some varsity tennis at like a very amateur level. And then aside from that, going on cruises with my family was another big one. Vacations like that. There are a lot of highlights. I had a really good, blessed childhood, and I'm really appreciative of that. All right, let's get the bases. So I'm by the rice paper section. I'm not sure where the rice paper is. Might be down closer by the end. Nope. Gotta back it up. Like SpongeBob. Alright, let me give you guys a view. So, we are at the rice paper section. It says rice and rice paper. I'm seeing like a lot of rice noodle, which I actually do need vermicelli noodle, which is great. So let me pick that up. Vermicelli noodle. I don't want a big pack. This one looks fine. Yeah, this one looks great. Pick one of these up. And that rice paper. It's right here, isn't it? Yep. So we will pick up. My dad will always get the Three Sisters, Three Ladies brand. This one. The next question, which is, what would you say the three most influential parts of my upbringing were? So, I'd say the three kind of big things that I would remember is, oh man, that's a tough question. So the top three influential parts were definitely education was a huge one. I did pretty well at school for a while, and then at some point in high school, things got hard. I actually needed to start studying like a lot more, and then once I had to do that, I like really questioned like why spend so much time like studying for things that I kind of knew long term I wasn't gonna use, and that was like really frustrating. So that was definitely like number one influencer on like me being kind of like angsty about like school, in school, and about school and the world as a whole. Another influential thing is my high school boys friend group. A lot of us are still friends today. The group isn't exactly the same, but that was a huge kind of like influential moment in my life. Just finding, a group of people that I was comfortable with was a huge, like it provided me a pillar of support that I looked for outside of my family for like, validation and feeling like connected to people my age. And that kind of carried on into college, finding like a community and, just feeling really confident about like who I was and the people I was around was like a really important, influencing part of my life. And then I'd say that, like the third most influential part of my upbringing was probably, it's interesting to say this, it's like religion, but it's kind of like the lack of having one was another influence. I think that I struggled with understanding like religion and spirituality up until pretty recently, and I did think that influenced like how I viewed the world like growing up. I maybe there was like a level of blissful ignorance to it, but over time I realized that it is a question that is very valid, and you know I wish I had potentially grown up with some level of faith or at least understanding of like what faith was in something, which is really interesting because I started in a Catholic school for a little while because it was a private school and they quote unquote have better education. I'm not 100% sure I remember because it was like really early on in my life, like kindergarten, first grade. Kind of having a lack of faith did make certain attributes of life harder. So I ended up having to just buy all the groceries really quick because I have a friend coming over pretty soon, and it was pretty hard to film and pick up the groceries at the same time. So I'm gonna just answer the last two questions that we had. So I grabbed a drink, which you'll see when I have it during the episode, and also a dessert. And there was two questions that were to follow up with that. The first of the two questions is, what did you want to be growing up as a kid? And then the second question was, how did life change for you after going to college? Or just like leaving the house, graduating high school. So they kind of lead into one another. The first one is, as a child, I actually really wanted to be a neurologist and work with the brain, something in the medical field, because, you know, being a doctor was going to be prestigious. That didn't play out because I realized how tough science is and I was really bad at it. Like AP Chem really destroyed me. And then so going to college, I got into the engineering school at Virginia Tech for computer science, but I ended up transferring over to the business IT route, and I actually really liked the business school. Life changed a lot after college. I think the biggest change for me was just being able to lean into a skill set and a community, which I feel like I wasn't able to do before. I think college really gives you the freedom to explore just being with different types of people and different communities, and I really embraced that culture and found one that worked for me and got really involved, and I had never gotten so involved in something before. So that was definitely a big turning point for me. I didn't know, you could feel a certain way about life. We're gonna get all these groceries home and we're gonna eventually cook it. And during the cooking, we're also gonna continue this talking food show. So just to show you the groceries, they're all bagged up. I'm gonna load them up into the trunk here, which has all my volleyball stuff. So we're gonna make it work. I'll see you guys back when we start cooking the food. Okay? Alrighty, it's an interesting angle. Welcome back to the show. I did take a really quick shower just because it was really hot. Virginia summers, Virginia summers are super hot. So decided I wanted a quick rinse before I cook and get sweaty again so that I have to rinse again. So there's that. Anyways, let's go ahead and finish up this episode. So throughout the cooking process, as I do each of the different steps, I'll interview myself, ask a question, and you'll hear the response. I definitely think this will be more dynamic once I have another guest in here, but for now, for this first episode, all you have is me. So yeah, let's get started. So first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and prep the sauce for the dish. Don't mind my secondary camera here. This will give you a better view. And of course, I forgot a bowl. So actually, no, I have the bowl. It's over here. So this is the bowl I'm gonna use for the sauce, and the sauce is pretty simple. It's just gonna be a peanut butter hoisin mix. So we got both peanut butter and hoisin sauce, and add a little bit of water, and that'll make our spring roll sauce. People like to dip it, and yeah, it should be pretty tasty. So the ratio I use is 1 part peanut butter. Peanut butter is pretty powerful, to 2 parts hoisin, and then another 1 part water just to thin out everything. We don't have the water yet. We're gonna add it in just a bit later once we have the noodles boiling, and we'll use a little bit of that boiled noodle water to get everything going in here, make the magic happen. And the question we have while we prep the sauce is, what were your top character development and training arcs that were in your life up until today? So I definitely say that I had a few character development arcs. It's interesting to think about, I guess, life during that time period. So here, we'll do 1 scoop peanut butter. Here's our peanut butter. So I'd say the first character development arc I had was in elementary school. I'd say it was actually interestingly enough, like elementary school before the 3rd grade. I was actually pretty popular, and I don't know why, but I think I was just like less insecure. So I was just like going around playing with other kids, and you know, I had a lot more friends. And then I guess during that time period, I wouldn't even say it was like character development. It's just a phase of my life where I was definitely very different. And then from the 3rd grade up until the 6th grade, I was actually really shy and pretty insecure about like a lot of things. So it was much tougher during that time to, I guess, like make friends and stuff. And I'd say like during that time period, my character development arc was just cooking and talking at the same time is surprisingly hard. I think I need more hoisin. So character development, once again. Second, so from 3rd to the 6th grade, I would say was really more internal. Like the character arc of that time was pretty much MapleStory. I think up until like the 8th going to the 9th grade, I played a lot of MapleStory, and that was really fun for me. And then at school, I just kept my head down, did my homework. You know, I had a handful of friends. I'd do some sleepovers with some like neighborhood friends, but life back then was pretty chill. I don't think that there was like anything major that I did. I did try my hand in like writing like a fiction book, so that was cool. Also, check out this drink I got at H Mart here. It is something weird. It's Jeju green tangerine juice. So I've never had tangerine juice. It caught my eye. And yeah, I'm just gonna give this a try because my mouth is getting dry while I talk. So that is actually pretty decent. I thought it was gonna be really lime heavy, but surprisingly it is not. It's actually really tasty. I like it. I don't know how to describe it, but it's definitely closer to like a juice. It doesn't taste like Sprite or 7-Up or anything. But yeah, so elementary school, low-key peak of popularity. 3rd to 6th, I had my MapleStory online phase. It's also when I got my first like iPod, and you know, gaming was a big thing. And then going through high school, I'd say that phase of my life was very much studying is really hard. And I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but studying got harder because things didn't come as naturally, and then I just questioned my reality in terms of like, why am I spending so much time learning about school when I don't think, or like certain classes in school like history or you know, things I just didn't feel like were that important. Like I don't use chemistry at all today. AP chemistry and AP physics I could definitely live without right now. So yeah, I just think during like that period of my life, I got really angsty because I was like, yeah, school sucks. And then I was just like a saltier, meaner person. And I was still playing games. I played League of Legends, which I'm sure that many of you have potentially played before. And League kind of in tandem with like the saltiness just made me like more toxic. So that was really bad. And then I think like the thing that triggered growth during this period of my life was one of my close childhood friends, his father passed away, and that was my first experience with death for someone that was close to me. So just made me think that if I'm going to live life, I'd rather be more positive as a person than negative, because life is so short that it doesn't really make sense to spend a lot of it being mean to people, because like who likes mean people, you know? So I'd say I got a lot more friendly after that. And then college was a huge character development arc for me. I got really involved in the Vietnamese Student Association, so that was VSA, and it really brought me out of my shell, made me meet a lot of people, got me really involved with the organization, made me proactive. I did event coordination for them, and then I was the president of the organization for a year as well. I also got really involved with like the umbrella organization afterwards. So I think I talked about that a little bit about that earlier, about how things change after college. But yeah, I'd say that those were really big ones. And then I had an internship at Capital One that was really horrible, made me hate corporate even more than I already did. And then I did corporate at Geico, so that was another phase. I feel like I'm repeating a history of a career that I was saying before, so I will potentially edit all of this out. Character development, popular, Maple Story, high school Asian boys in friend group and League of Legends being angsty and toxic, growing from people dying, and then just getting involved in college and being, more sociable, more proactive. So I think the next part, we're gonna prep the proteins, and the question here is, how did your past / upbringing influence your experience in some of those training arcs? Okay. Let's hope this was recording. It was indeed. So I'll flip you all over to where I'm doing the protein. And once again, the question was, how did my past influence my training arcs? So let's go ahead and get the heat started on here. Prop the window open so that it doesn't stink up the basement, which innately already has very poor ventilation. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think that is open enough. This is heating up, so we'll wait for this to heat up. And while we wait for this to heat up, we're gonna get the water in for the noodle boiling. So I'm just gonna fill up this pot. So how did my past influence this? I'd say that the dynamic between me and my father was a big influence in how I was in high school. I'd say that, sorry, let me get this water in the pot before y'all can hear me. Yeah, so I'd say that the dynamic between me and my father contributed a lot to the angst in high school. He expected a lot out of me academically, which I understood why, or I understand why he did today, but I think back then it was just like, didn't feel very supportive. I couldn't really like understand some of the bigger picture elements that, well, I don't know. How do I describe this? He was just like very stubborn in his ideology about school, and I think he just didn't explain it in a way that like really inspired me, to try harder. And I'd say that portion of my upbringing, in terms of just like not wanting to do something traditional, like be an engineer or a lawyer or a doctor on his end, and conflicting with like how education plays into going to those things, and my dad putting pressure on me to do those things anyway, which was a little ironic because he himself wanted to be an entrepreneur and didn't really like his corporate job. So it was like a little polarizing to hear from him about. So I was like, more confused back then. But yeah, I think that contributed to my angst a lot. I was just like, oh, things at home are strained, so I'm just angsty. So I think like leaving the house and going to college definitely helped a lot with that workflow for sure. All right, so I'm gonna get this shrimp out here, and I'm just gonna cook it on the pan with some oil. Ooh, that is really shrimpy. Okay, well, that plate just got sacrificed. So I'd say that was the biggest influence. I'd say another influence is my mom. Like looking at it now, she was pretty like sociable, in the sense that like she liked hanging out with people. So I think, she was always pretty understanding of me like wanting to go around and hang out, and I think that helped with how I wanted to pursue, I guess, socializing in college. But yeah, I'd say those two elements of my past were really helpful. Another element is like just me being Vietnamese, my Vietnamese heritage. That really pushed me into going into VSA, which I think is like the biggest contributor to where I am today, in the sense that it just helped me get so much hands-on experience with people and working on teams and communicating with groups. So my Vietnamese heritage definitely pushed me into that area, which I think is something I'm very proud of in my life. And that's the question for now. The pans are still heating up, so it's going to take a little bit. I'm going to pause the recording for a bit. All right, so the pan is starting to heat up. So I think that's really promising. I'll go ahead and get this camera turned on just so you guys get a POV of this pan cook right here. Okay, so I'm gonna get this shrimp started, and the next question comes with boiling the noodles, which we're gonna be waiting for this pot to boil anyway, so I'll just answer it while I get some of the shrimp frying. But let's go ahead and get some shrimp on first, and then I'll ask the question. This stuff is stanky. Oh, I need some oil. Let's get my... Make sure none of that oil got on the camera. Yeah, it looks okay. Okay. We might need some we might need to use this lid to help cook the shrimp, because this little burner that I have said that it's not really meant for sautéing, but I'm gonna test the limits. Worst comes to worst, I'll just boil everything, and then I can be a criminal in the food cooking show world. Oh, I'm hearing some sizzle now. If I were upstairs, I would definitely be using my air fryer and cooking this, but for the sake of the show, we're gonna keep it to the basement, which is the space that I can roam more freely on. So just gonna get these shrimps on there. Oh fuck. Gordon would not have approved, I'll tell you that much. It's interesting because I'm watching some seasons of MasterChef right now, so as I'm doing this cooking stuff, I'm like, Gordon would not approve all the time. But it's okay, I'm not cooking for Gordon, I'm cooking for myself, and I have lower standards. Okay, so the shrimp is usually pretty salty already because it's a seafood, so it doesn't need I feel like it doesn't really need too much seasoning going into this dish. I'm just gonna crank some fresh black pepper. So we got this batch of shrimp going. Put some black pepper on there. Okay, so the question was, what are some of the current ventures you're currently working on? What's the backstory of these ventures? So, my biggest thing right now is I am a freelance videographer, and I produce high quality media content for folks, and I think it's pretty exciting stuff. So, I just started in April, so it's kind of a big career change for me, and I'm learning a lot every day, but it's what I'm trying to do full time. Really, the background on how I got here is I've been wanting to take a dive for something not corporate for a while, and I've been picking up a lot of media gear over the years because it's been a hobby of mine and just something I was looking to do, for myself. So I figured I have enough to do professional stuff, interested enough in doing it. My overhead's really low since I'm blessed enough to live with family and they don't charge me too much for rent. So I took the dive, and yeah, this is what I do full time. I am trying to run a couple more media based workflows. So we have this cook and show. I'm trying to do some food recipes also at the same time. So the food recipes include just food recipes I come up with, things like Joshua Weissman or Adam Ragusa. I've always been interested in making food recipes, but themed kind of like cinematically. So we'll see how that goes. And then just a personal YouTube channel to talk about things, just like internal thoughts and share those types of thoughts. So those are kind of like other ventures, but the main big one is definitely just the freelance videography, running around talking to businesses, seeing if they're interested in having any professional video work done. That's my big thing right now. I was just tired of corporate. I'd say that corporate is definitely less hours than what I'm doing now and more money, but I think in terms of fulfillment, this type of workflows is what I was really looking to do in my life. I just think the opportunity for me to scale and be fulfilled in what I'm doing in this workflow in the long term is going to be better, and I'm going to work hard to make that come into fruition. I think that other people have done it, and I just need to have the self-confidence and the perseverance and the diligence to work hard to make it work for myself too. So that's where I'm at. So the shrimp's it's looking pretty good. I don't know how much longer these need, I'm not gonna lie. I'll show you on here. Looking pretty pink. So for this dish, I'm gonna go ahead and cook some beef as well to go along with the shrimp. So I'm not gonna make this whole bag of shrimp. It's just me here. Maybe for another day, for another meal. So I'm gonna cook about half that beef as well. So I'm gonna go ahead, and while that shrimp is still sizzling, which reminds me, I'll go ahead and give everything a flip here. Another flip. Get the other camera on. Give everything another flip. And then we'll go ahead and get this beef out of its packaging here. Alright. I'm going to take about half of this because I'm only making enough for me. I'm taking some of this over here, and then I will just season with that with a little salt and pepper. Really basic stuff today. Some salt. Pepper. Just bring everything in. Okay, I think that's good. And looks like water's beginning to boil here. You can see the steam coming out, so I'll just desanitize the thing in here. Boiling water should be able to get rid of all the meat bacteria, right? Okay, so water is coming up to a boil. We'll go ahead and get the noodles started. The noodles are pretty quick, so we're using, bring it on over, we're using some pho noodles or vermicelli noodles. So these are pretty standard for spring rolls. Yeah. And we'll just get a bundle of them in there. So these go pretty fast. I'd say 2 minutes, 3 minutes max, and then they'll cook from the heat. Usually what I'd like to do is I'd like to put them in some water, like or wash it with like cold water to stop the noodles from cooking any further. I don't have the luxury because I don't have a sink right now. But let's get this. Let's get this batch of bad boys. Oh, I'm not even pointing the camera in the right direction. Oh. Okay. This will go right on in. Ziggy, set a timer for 2 minutes.
2 minutes, starting now.
Perfect. So I'll let those go for 2 minutes. And then we're going to go ahead and pull the shrimp here. This shrimp's definitely good by now, I hope. Pull the shrimp here. This still sounds like it could cook, I'm not gonna lie. I might just pop the lid. I guess question I have for you all is, do you have any tips on cooking shrimp on the grill? Is there like a feel for it that I should be feeling with my spatula? One of the questions for the comments. Alright, we'll pull them now. And as we pull these off, the noodles should be about to finish up. And we'll get the meat on there, we'll answer the next question. Ziggy, off. Okay. Noodles could come out too. A whole bunch of them. Let's see if I can. And that is going right here. So that looks good. And that heat from the steam is still very hot, so it's still gonna continue to cook through. And while we have that water still hot, I'm gonna get a little bit of it to finish up our sauce here. So I'll bring the sauce. You can see what it looks like right now. I think maybe something like this. Yep. So it's looks pretty thick, right? It's not what we want, so we'll get just get a spoonful of water in there. And I said 1 part water, but really just play around with it until the consistency that, if you had these before, that you like comes out. So I'll go ahead and I'll get 3 spoonfuls. My sister likes a more liquid consistency. I like it thicker. So we got, and the heat from the water will really help loosen everything up for you to mix and get everything incorporated with each other. This might be even too liquidy. So just keep stirring, and eventually it's gonna come together. Okay, and that looks good. It's still pretty thick, but it's kind of how I like it. And you can tell by the darkness of it if you want more hoisin sauce or not. I'll add just another spoonful of water. Very good. That's come together. Alright, B-Cam, check out the noodles. Without falling, please. Then A-Cam. You can see the sauce there. It's thicker consistency. That's how I like it for my spring rolls. Okay. We'll set that aside. So the next step of the process here, and the next question after it, we'll get some more oil on this, and we're gonna get the meat started. Bring this over here. Very good. We can go ahead and turn off the heat over here on this water. Cool. So the next stage is the meat's cooking. We're supposed to prep the veggies and the water. I already have the veggies. Let me see if you can even see. Did I overshoot? Oh, I think this is okay. The veggies are already good. I already washed them. We do need some water though for the actual rice paper to soften up. And the question for this part of the process is, what are my goals with my current ventures within the next 1 to 2 years? So I think my goal is pretty simple. I'd like to make at least 6 figures in revenue with my freelancing by 6 figures in revenue with my freelancing by the end of next year. So I got like 1.5 years to do it. Straightforward and simple. For some of these other things like comfort food, I don't have any, major number goals at all. I have no expectations. All I want is for people to resonate with the show if the message of the show happens to be, something they really connect with. And that's as happy as I'll be. I don't need a lot of people watching, just the people that I think really care for it. Flip you all around. We have the water and the veggies prepped. Last part here is just getting this meat up and running. So it's cooking pretty quick. I didn't really cook this type of cut. I just found it at H Mart and I thought it looked similar enough to what my mom usually does. It's looking pretty good. It's a little pink, so I think it needs another minute. Just try to give it a flip. I'll go ahead and cover with the lid, let it finish up in its steam here, and then turn the heat down to much lower. I should cook it pretty gently there. Shrimp's ready, noodles are ready. Let's go ahead and bring everything over. Hopefully the shrimp is cooked and I'm not poisoning myself. I'll take another sip of the boy. Alright, so that meat's gonna finish up. I'll bring the camera back over when it's ready, but I'm gonna go ahead and tidy up some of this other stuff and I'll be right back, okay? I'm gonna take a sip of this and then I'll be right back. Oh, this is still recording. Hello. Okay. Well, I'm back from cleaning up. This meat is definitely looking good. I'll give you I'm over here finishing this up. I need a plate for the meat. We're gonna reuse the shrimp plate. So, got the meat out and about right here. It's looking nice and done. one hand. Okay. And I'm gonna push you all over here. So now we got the surf and turf going. Okay, so we're gonna go get ready to roll here, like actually roll a wrap, which is gonna be great fun. It's probably my favorite part about the entire process. Before we do that, I'm gonna go ahead and set you all up on this big boy camera in front of me, just so we can see, and then we'll have little small boy camera get the close up of the foods. All right, so this step of the process is bringing everything together, and the question is, what challenges do I anticipate facing during the current pursuit of the ventures that I'm looking to do? So I'd say that the biggest challenge that I'm gonna face is probably gonna be imposter syndrome more than anything else. And then the second one is just having like discipline and perseverance. I think that those two are probably some of the most important things that are involved with just running a business. And in general, you just don't know if you're going to make it, and you're not really raised in a society that makes you feel makes it feel like you're set up for success. And I think that's unfortunate. I think that we should be more encouraged to feel confident about the land of opportunity. I just don't know if the world does a great job of doing that for us. Okay, so I'm gonna assemble my roll, which is something I don't have imposter syndrome about because I'm very confident I can do this. It might not be the prettiest roll, but it's gotten much better with time, just like myself, hopefully. Okay, and let's do it. See if I remember how to use the gimbal. Yep. So we're gonna take a roll right here. Dip it in some water. Get everything covered. I got the big boy. He's gonna go in there. And then I'll get probably like half a thing of lettuce. I like the leafy part. I think my dad likes the crunchy part. We're gonna get some noodles. See if I can do it with one hand. I might have to drop the gimbal. Apologies. Okay. I should have brought a more serving type utensils. Okay, we're gonna get a good bundle of noodle there. And yeah, the noodles, I think, slightly overcooked from how I'm feeling it because I didn't do the cold water method. We're gonna get our thingy here for the meats. Bring over the meats. And I like to do a surf and turf. We'll do one shrimp, and then on the other half we'll do beef. And then most folks like to dip their spring roll, but I think, I don't know if, it wasn't necessarily how I was raised. I think I just did this as a kid. And my mom didn't really even see me do this until, like, she didn't notice it until later on. But I like to just, like, gloop my sauce right into the center there. And then that way I get, like, an even-ish distribution throughout. I don't have to worry about dipping in anything and getting the sauce bowl dirty. So That's how I like to do it. Get this wrapping just so the other camera can see. Okay. Try to roll it as tight as I can here. Okay, that looks okay. Looks decent. I'm sorry, I'm out of frame. Looks okay, right? Get the shrimp in frame with everything else. Cool. All right, so before we eat, I would like to just do a bit I want to do for every episode, and that's just expressing gratitude. I think that, every day that we live, we should definitely be grateful for. And there's just so many good things to look out for in the day, even if, there are lots of potentially bad things happening to and around us. At the very least, we can be thankful for, you know, waking up in the morning and different things. So I'd like to just take a minute and just be grateful for something. And my gratitude for today is just being grateful to start new things. I think that it's really cool to be able to do, I think it's very courageous to step out of your comfort zone and start new things. This is definitely kind of freaky for me, and I have no expectations. I think the important part for anyone in terms of starting anything is just not having, being kind to themselves and not having any sort of really rough expectations on themselves for how it's going to do. And in this moment, I'm just grateful for the fact that I'm doing it and I'm going to push it out and complete it however it turns out. And I hope that, and I'm also really grateful to whoever's watching today and whoever's made it this far. It really means a lot. And I hope that you are resonating with today's message. But yeah, so let's go ahead. Gratitude is all and done with. We'll get to the end part of this interview. So go ahead and take a bite here, and we can go ahead and turn on this bad boy. So I'll start on the surf side with the shrimp. Ooh, that is good. The shrimp is cooked well, thank God. It's I can't tell. I think it's cooked all the way through. I can never tell if shrimp's raw, but it doesn't taste like it, so that's good. I usually leave the shell on the shrimp because I'm lazy, and B, I kind of like the crispy texture of the shell, and I'll eat the tail and everything because it's all edible. So yeah, it's really good. Try to get down to the beef side.
What are some life lessons you've learned that you think will help?
I could easily crush like 5 or 6 of these. I think maybe even 8. Okay, my camera only got 22 minutes left of memory, so let's get going. Question for this segment: what are some life lessons you've learned that you think will help you walk your current path? I'd say that some life lessons that I think are really important for me is in my childhood, I was definitely there was all that external pressure to perform. So I think that pressure eventually turned into my own self expectations and perfectionism, and it made it really hard to start and finish things. because I'd always think about starting it and be like, oh, but it has to be perfect. Nowadays, I think a big life lessons I learned is, and I think I summarize it up to progress over perfection, because perfection is never going to be achieved. There's no such thing as perfect. And that's so cliche, right? Like nobody's perfect, nothing's perfect. And if that's the case, then what really is quote unquote perfect is just being able to complete whatever it is that you're trying to do at the current skill level that you have in that current moment. So for this episode, I'm sure that's pretty shambly, and I'm sure that as time goes on I'm going to get better, but with this episode being completed, it's going to be progress for me, and that's what's most important for me. So that's one big life lesson. Another one is just being proactive and being organized and staying on top of things. I think that's a really important core value for me as well to help me walk my current path. The next question is, what is something that you are currently working with yourself on internally? I think my big thing is communication and just like listening to people. I'd say that I have strong communication skills, but I can definitely be better. I think everybody really has like knee jerk reactions when they hear certain things. And it just like that knee jerk reaction makes them just like either like raise emotional walls or just like respond really emotionally. And for me, what I am trying to work on is just like when I hear something and I feel emotion, just working on not letting that influence what I say and do, and just like set aside that emotion and really just try to hear the person and understand like what their intention is before I even respond to their message. So I think that's the big thing for me. What are some longer term goals that I envision wanting to accomplish within the next 3 to 5 years? Big one is opening a food truck. Another one, 3 to 5 years, owning my own house. I think that'd be a big win for me. We'll see if I can generate the amount of income to get to that. Oh, and the highlights are really blown, guys. I'm sorry. Let me just turn this down. Okay, that looks less bright. So yeah, food truck and owning home. I really want my own place and to just be able to decorate different areas of it for myself. I think that'd be really cool. And then the last question is, if I could only share one lesson to the world, what would it be and why? I think the biggest lesson is, like I was saying earlier, the big life lesson that I feel like I took with me was progress over perfection, and combining that with one other one, which is to just show yourself some self love. For me, I struggled a lot with perfectionism, and I think that really came from a place of not believing in myself and having really unrealistic expectations of myself. And I think that in the last 2 years, I've just learned to appreciate who I am, and also, you know, be able to negotiate with my inner monologue and show it some care and grace, and remind it and soothe it and tell it that just to shoot for progress over perfection. So I keep repeating that, but I think that's really what gets me through day by day as I work on these things and as I walk uncertainty. I think that's really important for me. So yeah, that is everything. We're gonna go to the last segment of the show here, and yeah, it's gonna be good. We did a bunch of cooking. That means there's a lot of dishes to do. So I'm gonna go ahead, and my household is more modernized, so all the super traditional Asians out there, I'm gonna disappoint by using the dishwasher, which I think is just more efficient time wise, and time is money. So I don't care if there's an argument to be made about saving extra water. This thing's just faster. Anyways, let's go ahead and summarize what we've learned today. So, you learned my story. I'm a 25-year-old Vietnamese American man who is going off in my own journey on freelance and professional videography, just making and telling stories. And, I come from a very blessed background with, I think, a traditional pretty traditional take on education, which has definitely influenced where I am today, as well as my involvement in certain communities that help me push myself to really embrace opportunities and community as a whole, just be proactive as a person. So, and the biggest life lesson that I had is just learning to accept yourself for who you are today, and that expectation and negotiation of that expectation with yourself, being able to strive for progress over perfection. And yeah, really hope that you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, feel free to, comment down below, continue the discussion in any way, shape, or form, or let me know your tips on how to tell when shrimp is cooked. And aside from that, for future episodes, I plan on releasing it once per week. If you want to see those, feel free to hit the sub button and you'll get a notification for the next episode, which I'm hoping is way more dynamic than me running this camera and show alone for the most part. So yeah, I'll catch you next week.